Good morning, Nandesh. Thank you, Ashwini. Thank you so much. The topic that has been given to me today is data analytic data analytic techniques and its usage. So before I move into the topic, I would just like to focus on a very important quotation or a quotation that highlights the importance of data from which an ideal system of any sort is constructed. Unquote. See this very quotation uh, gives several keywords related to statistics and data. It says, data relates to facts and principles. It has to be granted and it has to be presented, and from through that presentation you derive certain inferences on which your arguments, whether you accept your arguments or you refute the arguments. So having seen this quotation, we will move on to the next slide, which is an introduction slide. uh, like you must be seeing why I have put this research component here. Yesterday, you had an elaborate class on research by one of my professors, Dr. Navita Timaya, to whom I always look up to. She gave a wonderful session on research and its connects. Today, to show the position where data is in research, I will be just rushing through these concepts once again. Like all of us know, what is the meaning of research? Research, in common parlance or in general language, is just a search for knowledge. The word itself says it is research. Okay, searching again. But in the scientific or in technical sense, it is a scientific and a systematic search, either to discover new facts or to verify the existing or old facts. And in this discovery of new facts or verification of the old facts, several things occur and several things happen. Right? So, talking about research, I will move on to say what is research methodology. Research methodology is quite different, isn't it? Research methodology, it is a very wider term. It's a very wide and a broad concept. Like, you cannot draw a boundary for this concept. Yet, I would like to put three important things in the purview of research methodology, or three important things that we consider under research methodology. One is the theoretical perspectives or orientation. The theories or the theoretical perspectives or orientation that will guide research or the logic of inquiry. Second are the tools and techniques for data collection. And lastly, the methods of data analysis. These three components comprise what is called as research methodology. That is theory for logical inquiry, then perhaps collecting data through different techniques, and then analyzing the data comprises what is called as research methodology. Coming to research methods are quite different from research methodology. Research methods are different in the sense that they are made up of research techniques and research tools. So, what are research techniques? Research techniques, very simple way, the word itself says, they refer to the aspects of collecting data. So, how you collect data, how you gather information, how you obtain different kinds of variables, all these are guided through the various research techniques. And tools for research comprise, the tools that.
Excuse me, ma'am. Your voice is not hearable, ma'am.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Ma'am, it's very far. Your voice is very far.
Okay, fine. Now?
It's okay. Now it's okay.
Yes. So research, like I was talking about research methods, I said methods consists of research techniques and research tools. Techniques are, say, the practical aspects of collecting data, gathering information, forming variables, and so on. Tools, for these techniques to work out, you have certain tools, or rather instruments. They can be your questionnaires, your schedules, your diaries, checklists, and so on. And research classification, yesterday madam has covered this, but I'll just run through some of the important classifications of research. Like, you have theoretical and applied research, descriptive and explanatory research, quantitative and qualitative research, conceptual as well as empirical research. So with keeping this background, we will move on to analyze our next next concept, that is the research process. This is a very important concept. I will have to focus a little more on this to tell you where is data posited in this process. So what is research process? Research process refers to the steps involved in research, and this process rarely follows a linear path. It does not have a defined or a given path. It is quite subjective to the researcher to evolve his own research process. Research process can be generally analyzed with the help of this flow chart. That is, the first step of the research process is defining the research problem. You take any research problem, you'll have to well define it. Like, for example, impact of COVID or the pandemic on students' education. When you're taking this problem, you will have to define the problem. After you define the problem, you will have to state its objectives and pose certain research questions, like what are you going to see, who is your who are, like, impact of COVID on education, whom are you going to study, whether it is primary education, secondary education, or higher education, and what kind of an impact, whether it is the impact on learning, whether it is the impact on the creativity of the student, what kind of impact are you seeing. So these questions you pose. For you to arrive at these questions, you need to have the support of literature. You review a lot of literature. Of course, madam has covered this. When you review literature, two important categories of literature that you review is the review of concepts and theory. Next, the review of research findings from other studies. You review this and you arrive at what you have to find in your study. After you review literature, what you usually do is you go on to formulate hypothesis. That's a research hypothesis. What is a research hypothesis? It is a predictive statement that relates an independent variable to a dependent variable, and this relationship is also tested. Okay. After the formulation of hypothesis, you will go on to design your research. And in research design, you have sampling methods. You will follow different methods, what has to be your sampling, and all that conceptual structure. Research design gives a conceptual structure within which research must be conducted. So it gives you a boundary or a design within which you have to conduct your research. Next, this is a very important step, or the step that is connected to the topic that I am speaking on today. That is collection of data, their source, their tools, and their methods. After you collect data, after you source it, you use tools to collect it, you use the different methods on it, you go for the analysis of data, a very important stage in research. Okay, analysis of data is done differently, that we will see in the subsequent slides. After analysis of data, what you do is you get into report writing. See, when I say research, it includes research required for your project work, research for your MPhil or pre-doctorate dissertation, and research for your PhD dissertation. So research is a very elaborate process where in the, I personally divide research in two stages. Like the first stage is a stage where you read and read, okay, to evolve on what you have to do. Second stage is a stage where you what you have read and what data you have collected, whatever you have analyzed, you'll have to write about it. So the first stage of reading is for you to get an idea, and the second stage of writing is for you to present your idea to the society or to your peers or to the community wherever you belong to. So research comprises of many stages, and data analysis is last. I mean, data analysis comes at a stage after you have decided your hypothesis, your objectives, your research design. Then you will come to the collection of data and its analysis. Hope you have understood this. We will move on to the next slide, that is data, and what we are supposed to talk on today. See, etymologically speaking, the origin of data is from a Latin word, which means something that is given. Okay, data simply means something that is So something that is given is the general meaning of data. But since I was already told by Nandish and Ashwini that there are students both from commerce discipline as well as economics discipline, I have taken two definitions of data, one from the economics perspective and second is from the commerce perspective. Okay, looking into the economics perspective, the Dictionary of Modern Economics defines data as observations on the numerical magnitude of economic phenomena such as national income, unemployment, or the retail price. So, what is the economic perspective of data? It says it is observation. Data is something that generates out of observation, and it takes a form of numerical magnitude, and it can be on any economic phenomena, be it national income, unemployment, or any retail price or any other phenomena, savings, banking, anything, right? Talking from the commerce perspective, Robert A. Arnold, in his Modern Data Processing, defines data as a function of business and accounting. So he attributes data to be performing the functions required for business and for accounting. So, in other words, if I have to say, data is a quintessential aspect for the very factors of business and accounting. So having said this and having seen the meaning and definition of data, we will move on to the next slide. Before I start with this slide, there are different types of data available before the researcher. Okay, when you intend to do research, you have different types of data. And discipline wise, these types change. Like types of data is different for science disciplines, types of data is different for social science disciplines. Here, types of data, what I'm talking about, it refers to the social science discipline. And taking looking into the various texts and looking into the various material on data and types of data, we can broadly classify data into 6 types. Okay, the first important classification is with reference to the scale of measurement, right? As per the scale of measurement, we have three important types of data. One is the nominal data, ordinal data, and the scale data. Now, what are these? Remember, we are classifying this type of data on the scale of measurement. Okay, like if I have to give an example, whenever I am measuring an object with a ruler or a scale, that will give me scale data. Whenever I'm ranking first, second, third winners in a competition, that will give me ordinal data. And say in this meeting, in this virtual meeting, when I start counting the number of females, okay, I am using nominal data. I am classifying the data as per some attribute. So this nominal data refers, whenever the data is classified as per some attribute like gender or maybe religious affiliation or city of residence, such kind of data is called as nominal data. When it comes to the ordinal data, this is completely ranked data, like position of teachers in a university. Okay, like you have assistant professors, you have associate professors, you have professors, you rank them. Position of military ranks, fine. But then socio-economic status of people like poor, then lower middle class, higher income class. So all these is you rank the data. Marital relationship also is ranked, right? Third important type of data is the scale data. What is scale data is? Scale data, yes, scale data is of two types. Okay, one is it is interval data and ratio data. So, what is interval data? Interval data is ordered categories of data. Like, if I am going to see, if a psychologist is going to see the IQ, intelligence quotient of a student, he will rank. When he ranks the data as 0 to 10, 0 to 10, 10 to 20, and 20 to 30, he is using an interval data. Okay. Next, ratio data is quantitative measurement of the variable in the form of magnitude. Okay, in the form of magnitude, you put this data. Like, for example, the sex ratio, which is calculated, which is a demographic variable, which says for 1,000 males, so many females exist in a nation. Say if the sex ratio is 973, for per 1,000 males, there are 973 females in the country. So this is with regard to scale of measurement data. One important thing or one important aspect of the scale of measurement data is, there is a hierarchy. You follow a hierarchy when you use this data. What is the hierarchy? Nominal data is the lowest level data. Ordinal data is the middle level data, as well as scale data is the highest level data. Why? On what basis am I saying this? On the basis of the analyzable information contained in the data. So, on the basis of the amount of information or analyzable information that is contained in the data, scale data is the highest, ordinal data is the second highest, and nominal data enjoys the lowest level. Hope you have understood this. Am I audible and am I making sense to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Next classification of data is data with reference to continuity. Okay, so when it comes to continuity, we have two classification or two types of data. One is continuous data, the second is the discrete data. Now, what is continuous data and what is discrete data? Continuous data is an infinite set of possible values. Like, for example, it's an infinite set of possible values. Like, for example, height of an individual. It is never exact. Say the height of someone is 155.6 centimeters, the other person it can be 155.4, and so on. It is never exact, right? You cannot say it should be 155 or it should be 154. Same way, discrete data is consists of a finite set of values or finite or countable set of values. Like, for example, number of people in a country, or number of students in this meeting, or number of faculties in your college, number of departments in your college. These are exact. Okay, this is discrete data. Continuous data can never be exact. It can be subjective, or it can keep on changing. It is continuous. Fine. This is second classification of data with regard to continuity. The third classification of data is data with reference to the number of characteristics in it. Okay. As per this, you have univariate data, bivariate data, and multivariate data. Now, what is univariate data? Data that is obtained when one characteristic is used for observation. Such a data is called as a univariate data. Now, for example, I look into the performance of all of you. After we give a test, I look into the performance of all of you in my class. That is univariate data. You have attended so many classes. I am only specific about my class. Come to bivariate data, it is not one. Here you study two characteristics, okay, are measured simultaneously. Like, if I go to measure the height and weight of students in the class, I'm measuring on two characteristics. When it comes to multivariate data, there are more than three characteristics that are being measured. Like, for example, I'm measuring the family size, income, and savings of people in a metropolitan city. I'm taking three characteristics and I'm measuring. Such a data is called as the multivariate data. Remember, univariate, bivariate, and multivariate is based on the number of characteristics in the data. If it is single, it is univariate; double, it is bivariate; and three or more than three, it is multivariate. Moving on to the next classification, that is data with reference to time. This is very important, and this is quite popularly used category of data in economics as well as in commerce. With reference to time, we classify data as time series data and cross-sectional data. Now, what is time series data? Data recorded in a chronological order. When data is recorded in a chronological order of time, you get time series data. Okay, like, for example, when we are measuring the gross domestic product of India from 1951 to 2021, or gross domestic savings in India for the last 5 years, or for the last 10 years, or for the last 50 years, this comprises the time series data. There is, the emphasis here is on the time element or the chronology of the data. When it comes to the cross-sectional data, it refers to data for the same unit or for different units at a point of time. Okay, when you take data on a similar unit and same unit or for different units at a particular point of time, you have cross-sectional data. Like, for example, data across different sections of, when you collect data on income across different sections of people, that becomes a cross-sectional data. This is the fourth classification of data. Next important classification of data is data with reference to origin. This is again a very important and widely used category of data. That is, when it comes to origin, we have two types, that is primary data and secondary data. Now, what is primary data? All of you know. You will be in your fourth semester. For people who are in the first semester, when you enter the fourth semester, you will be doing a project report where you will apply all these. You will be using either form of this data, and you will be applying the techniques that I will speak in the further slides. So, what is primary data? Data obtained first hand from the field or from the individuals. That is, data obtained from the field is called as the primary data. Like, you can obtain this in different methods like interviewing or mailing a questionnaire and so on. Census data that is collected for every decade is a kind of a primary data. And usually commerce people indulge into market surveys to see customer satisfaction, to see what is the producer's perception and all, or the salesman's perception. So whenever you're doing such studies, you go and interview customers directly, right? Such a kind of data is called as primary data. The next important type is the secondary data. Data from already collected sources, I mean, already published sources, published books or reports comprises secondary data. Like if I'm using data from the economic survey, say on education, I'm trying to collect some data on education, enrollment of education, and I refer to the educational statistics given by the MHRD, which is a report. Okay, the All India Survey on Higher Education report, which MHRD releases. I'm using data from that. That is secondary data. That is, I'm taking data from an already published source. The sixth classification of data is data with reference to characteristics. Previously, we saw data on the basis of number of characteristics. Here we are seeing data with reference to characteristics. We have quantitative data and qualitative data. So when the characteristic of the observation is quantified, you have quantitative data. For example, age of a person, it is quantified. Price of a fruit or price of a vegetable, and income of a family. So there is an attribute and you're trying to quantify it. Such a data is quantitative data. When it comes to qualitative data, when the characteristic of the observation is qualitative or is a quality or attribute, we get qualitative data like sex of a person or color of a person, intelligence of a student. All this comprises qualitative data. So talking about six categories of data, we saw that data can be, I mean, data has different types, and in various different setups and for different research questions, you can apply different types of different types of data, and you can collect different types of data for your research questions. So, having spoken about the types of data, next, an important topic that we have to analyze is, we have seen, like, we started with what is research process, what is the position of data in the research flowchart. Then we went to understand what is data, what are the different types of data before the researcher. Now, once we have decided what kind of data we want, we should also be knowing what is the method of data collection that we must use or we must apply. The first method of data collection that is available is census or the survey method. Okay. This method is a carefully planned and organized study or inquiry to collect data on the subject of inquiry. Like, for example, the census, the decadal census that is conducted in India every decade to collect information on the social state, or to collect information about the different people living in India. Everyone, it's a complete enumeration study. It's a complete study. The whole universe is covered. Everyone in India is covered under this study. So such a method is called as census and the survey method. Whenever you're doing census, you use the survey method. The second important method is the observation method. So this is also used in social sciences. What you do is, under the observation method, it records data as things occur. You observe something, okay? As things occur, you start recording data. Now, for example, you're using a YouTube channel. say you're going live on that channel and you start seeing the data analytics of number of people watching, number of people commenting, okay, a number of people subscribing. You keep on observing that. This is observation method. And you make use of appropriate and accepted methods of measurement here. Like for example, in observation method, recording of body temperature or blood sugar levels or blood pressure levels for patients in hospitals, this is observation method. Or daily recording of a location's maximum and minimum temperature, which is done by the meteorological department, as well as recording of rainfall during the rainfall seasons. All these follow observation method. The third important method that we use for the collection of data, I'm stressing here, I'm talking about these methods which are used for the collection of data. The third important method is the experimental method or experiment method. So data collected through well designed and controlled statistical experiments. So these experiments are designed well and they are also controlled experiments. The best example that I can give for this experimental method, especially in economics, is the randomized controlled trials. Randomized controlled trials, this concept emerged after Abhijit Banerjee, Esther Duflo, and Michael Kremer got the Nobel Prize for it. Okay, what they did, what method they did, their study was on poverty, how to alleviate poverty. Okay, and when they went to do this study, they used this experimental method. They did this randomized controlled trials, and through experimental method, they got to know what can be the best methods to alleviate poverty in different situations or in different conditions. So this is experimental method. So we have seen the types of data that a researcher can use, as well as when he settles on the types of data, what can be the methods that he can use in the collection of the data. Having analyzed this, we will move on to the next slide, that is, what can be the different tools that a researcher, maybe an economics researcher or a commerce researcher uses for the collection of data. We have already explained about the observation method, but I will a little more stress on this. This is because since this is an important method in the collection of data, or it is an important tool, I'm treating it as a tool here. So how do you treat observation to be a tool? Observation, like one of the famous quotations says, observation is the process of seeing things or events with the naked eye, with or without the use of any device, to unravel the complexity of any phenomena to satisfy the demands of an empirical question. So this is the potentiality of observation. There are, many types of observation that a researcher can do. One, he starts with a very casual observation. That is, when he's in the initial stages of research, he will just go casually observe his field or his study area and he will come. After casual observation, usually the observation becomes formal, where he goes prepared to collect information or to collect data. This is one type of observation. Second important type of observation can be direct observation and indirect observation. Like for example, watching a teacher teach. Usually, when you're doing a education degree, they have one semester where their teachers sit and watch how they are teaching. Right? This is direct observation. What can be indirect observation is, you see, there is a famous scheme in the government called the midday meal scheme. And in this midday meal scheme, it has evolved. From the day it started, it has evolved. Like what should be the menu for the children, and what should how should the nutritional prospects be enhanced, and so on. So what there was a lot of trial and error. Like if I give students a ragi ball today and see what was left over in their plates, tomorrow I will give them rice and see whether they completed their food or they left something in their plates. So when I'm doing this kind of an observation is an indirect observation. Okay. Next important method or the tool for data collection is the questionnaire method. All of you will, when you start doing research, you will be very familiar to this method. Questionnaire is a research instrument, and the credit of introducing questionnaire goes to Sir Francis Galton. Okay. What is questionnaire? Questionnaire basically is a list of research or survey questions. It consists of list of research or survey questions, and it is usually asked to the respondents, and it is designed in a way that it can extract maximum information from the respondents. Questionnaire serves various purposes. Okay, there are different purposes of a questionnaire. Whenever you're making a questionnaire in research, it has various purposes. Like, it collects the appropriate data for you. It makes data comparable and amenable for analysis. And one of the important thing is it minimizes bias which is otherwise present in data, and it makes questions engaging and varied. So questionnaire is a very important tool for you to collect information from the study area for your research question from the respondents. And making questions engaging and varied is also a very important feature. There are different types of questionnaire. Okay, what are the different types of questionnaire? One is a structured questionnaire where you structure your questions tightly. These are close ended questions. Okay, second is an unstructured questionnaire. You just go and you start asking, and then you start writing there, and you start taking their responses. Semi-structured questionnaire is both a close-ended questionnaire as well as an open-ended questionnaire. So you have different types of questionnaire that you can use as per your requirements of the data and as per the requirements of your research topic. Simply saying. Okay. The third important method is the interview method. What is interview? Generally, we know interview is a face-to-face interaction. Even in this research method of interview, there is a face-to-face verbal interchange. Okay, verbal interaction or verbal interchange between who? There are two persons here. One is the researcher. He is also the interviewer. Okay, and with whom is he doing? He is doing it with the respondent or the interviewee. You call him as the interviewee. Okay, what is the need for this? Interview is done to take the needed information from the respondent, whatever needed information, like you're going to study the impact of COVID-19 on retail business, impact of COVID-19 on the uh, shops, stationary shops near you. So you will go and you will face to face interview them. You will ask them, what was your sales before COVID-19? What were your sales after COVID-19? The number of books that you had bought, are all of them, did you sell all of them? So this is interview. Through interview, you gather information. He will say, yes, I had so many books and only so many I could sell. So you will keep recording this. Okay, this is the interview method. Of course, there are different types of interviews too. Like, sometimes it is an informal conversation where, through informal conversation, you get information. And you also have standardized or open-ended interviews where, the questions are quite open-ended, left to the respondent to answer. So, third classification is a closed-ended or a fixed response interview where your questions are closed-ended. You give choices, like, your Google forms that come. If this is the question, you have A, B, C, D answer. So these are open-ended. These are closed-ended questions. Then you also collect. You one more method through which you can do interview is the telephonic interviews. Having spoken about three important methods, sorry, not methods, tools for data collection, a very important tool, quite popularly used in social sciences, is the case study method. Okay, this is very important. Even when you get into your fourth semester, when you start your project work, of course, fourth semester is the time where you have to present the planning, and the activity behind doing your project, research project, starts in the third semester itself. Okay, so in this third semester, you will start deciding which method or which tool I would be using. One of the methods that you can use is a case study method. Now, what is a case study method? It is an in-depth study of a particular situation or a subject from different time periods. It's a very, very deep study about a subject or a situation from the perspective of different time periods. And this method is used to narrow down very broad field of research into a easily researchable topic. So this method converts a very broad and a very wide field of research into an easily researchable topic. That is the nature of case study. And case study method is useful to test whether your scientific theories and models actually work in the real world or not. Like you have a theory of demand. Whether it actually works or not, you can test it through the case study method. Of course, when it comes to disciplines like psychology, anthropology, and social sciences use case study method as a valid research method. Okay, they consider it to be a very valid research method of collection of information method. There are too many advantages of a case study. It helps us to build upon theory. Okay, one is it can help us in building upon this theory. Not only building, it also helps sometimes to produce a new theory. It can lead to a product, a process of a new theory, as well as the existing theories which are there. Using the case study method, you can either criticize it, you can dispute it, and you can contest it. Okay, and you can also explain a situation completely. Okay, without any nothing left, you can explain a situation only through the case study method. So, case study method is a very important tool for your data collection. Hope you have understood and you are following what I'm saying. All of you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Having said this, we will move on to, before I get into data analysis, right? We will. I would like to very briefly reflect a little on what is population and what is a sample. Like you see, the figure here very clearly explains what is the composition of the population and what is a sample. This big circle here is population and the small circle here is a sample. So what is population? What is it saying here? Can anyone tell me what is it saying here? Can anyone tell me what does this figure say? Yes, exactly. Population consists of so many people. Okay, and we are selecting and choosing some people in this ambit of the sample. So population is an entire aggregation or it is the universe. Okay, it consists of entire group of people, whereas sample is a small group of people taken from the population. Or in other words, you call sample to be a unit or representation or representative of the population. Fine. Usually, samples from an available group called accessible population, or the study population is taken as a representative of the population. Sample, therefore, sample is, see, we have selected this and this. We have, why are we selecting this? The main reason is sometimes we cannot study the entire population. In that case, we do not abandon the research question. In that case, what we do is we select a sample from it, a representative sample from it. And there are various methods of sample through which you can choose a sample. I will not be getting into it. Like, if I have to give an example, say all rural mothers all rural mothers in a particular, there is a village called village A, and if I'm studying all rural mothers in that particular village, that is a population. Okay, for that study area it is fine. But if I go to study the all rural mothers in India, I will not be able to study. In that case, what I do is I will take a sample of the rural mothers. That becomes my, and this sample that I take is from the population. So we draw a sample from the population. The advantage of using sample is it is quite economic. Okay, it helps us on the cost, it helps us on time, it is time saving, and it is a practical and effective method of data collection. It is very effective as well as practical method of data collection. Okay, this is with regard to the, you know what is population and you know what is a sample. Now, I will come to, like, till now we studied, like, let me just recapitulate what I have covered till now. We started with research. What was data's position in research? What was data? What are the different types of data? What are the different methods of collecting that data? And what can be the tools that can help in collecting data? We also saw what is population and what is the sample. Having said so, I will come to what is data analysis. Like we saw in the flow chart, right? Where is data analysis? That is last but one step of research, analysis of data. So what is data analysis? Data analysis simply means analyze. I mean, it's an analysis means categorizing, ordering, and summarizing the data to obtain answers to research questions. This data, okay, in this, while you analyze data, you're categorizing it, you're ordering, you're arranging the data, and you're summarizing the data, keeping what, keeping your research question in the background. Okay, and data that is collected should be processed and should be analyzed. Why? Because we have to understand the trends and patterns of relationship that exists between the variables. And what is the use of data analysis? It helps, it reduces, summarizes, organizes, evaluates, interprets, and communicates numerical information in the descriptive form. So this is a very important use of data analysis. So what is data analysis? Whenever we are analyzing, that is arranging our data, categorizing our data, ordering our data, processing our data, we are doing some kind of data analysis. This is a, I hope this chart is visible to all of you. Okay, this is, analysis. When I'm talking about the analysis of data is further classified into processing of data and the analysis of data. That means proper analysis. Okay, processing of data is preparing data for analysis. This complete chart I will be covering one by one as to what it says in the next slides. This is a chart, where you have analysis of data classified into processing of data and analysis of data. Under processing, you have editing, coding, classification, tabulation, and percentages. Under analysis of data, you have descriptive analysis and inferential analysis. When it comes to descriptive analysis, you can do unidimensional, bivariate, as well as multivariate analysis. And when it comes to inferential, you get into the estimation of parameter values, okay, and the testing of hypothesis. Testing of hypothesis is either done through the parametric test, that is the point estimate, and the interval estimate, as well as with the help of the non-parametric tests. Fine. Next, I'm trying to explain this chart one by one. I'll just take a very little time to tell this. Okay. I told you data analysis is classified into one, processing of data. Second is the analysis of data, right? Under processing of data, you have all this: editing, coding, classification, tabulation using percentages. Now, briefly, I would cover what it is. Editing is, what happens when you collect data for research, it is quite human to err. Okay, that there can be errors in measurement, errors in data collection, incomplete questionnaires, incomplete information, and all this. So, in this phase of research, in this phase of data processing, what you do is you edit and you get rid of or you remove all these errors from the data and make the data ready for further analysis. The second, after editing, what you do is you get into coding the data. So what is coding? Coding is a way of categorizing the data into groups and numbers. Why do we do this? We do this in order to reduce the large amount of information before us. So information of collected units will be reduced, and it will be in a systematic form when you code the data. After you finished coding, you will move on to classification of data. Data is usually classified as per one or more internal characteristic as well as external characteristic. You classify data on the basis of internal characteristics and external characteristics. Now, classification of data as per external characteristics. How do you do? On the basis, on the basis of external characteristic, the data can be classified as on the basis of geographical location or on the basis of chronological characteristic. Okay, like for example, geographical. If I'm taking state-wise production of manufactured goods, or I'm taking district-wise enrollment in education, all this is geographical. Okay, when I say chronological, profit of the mobile phone industry in the previous 5 years, this is chronological. Okay, second classification is classification according to the internal characteristics. You have two types. One is classification according to the attributes. Okay, like attributes like sex, caste, occupation, place of residence, and in so on. When it comes to internal characteristics, you can have simple classification and manifold classification. Under simple classification, you only have one classification. Like for example, you have employed and unemployed. Okay. Under manifold classification, you have employed and unemployed. Under employed, you take gender, say male and female. This is manifold classification of data. Okay. Next, classification according to the magnitude of the variables. This is very important. Okay. According to the magnitude of the variables, you can classify data as descriptive variable as well as continuous. You can classify the variables in the data as descriptive variables and continuous variables. Like I already told you, descriptive variables have exact values. Like for example, number of children for a parent. You cannot say a parent has 1.5 child, or I cannot say my mother has 4.5 daughters, right? It is exact. There are 4 daughters, or there are 2 daughters, or there is one son, or one son and a daughter. This is descriptive variable. Okay, it does not carry any fractional value. And in continuous variable, it is takes value within a specified range. Like for example, height of a person. I have already told you it can be 155.6, it can be 155.7, or 155.8. So this is one of the types of classification. Like this classification is very important form of data presentation or data processing. After you classify data, you move on to tabulate it. That is putting data in a tabular form. So presentation of the collected data is put in a tabular form. Tables can be of two types. One is, you can have simple tables. Simple tables is like, I have year and population. This is a simple table. Okay, this is a simple table. You have complex tables. Like complex table is I have year, then I have population, then I have number of males, then I have number of females. Okay, this becomes a complex table. Fine. And another important step of after tabulation is using the percentages. You put, because the data, even the data is too much, you put the data in the form of percentages so that it can simplify your analysis. This is regarding to what is it? Processing of data, that is preparing data for analysis. You do all these steps. Next thing is you come to the analysis of data. And when you come to analysis of data, you can either do descriptive analysis and you can also do inferential analysis. Here I'll be dealing with descriptive analysis. Descriptive analysis is computed to describe the characteristics or attributes of sample or a population. And one important characteristic of descriptive analysis is it limits to a particular sample. Generalizations are limited to a particular sample. No conclusions will extend beyond that sample or beyond that group. Under descriptive analysis, we have the unidimensional analysis, that is calculation of several measures concerning one variable. One variable. Okay, these include measures of central tendency, measures of dispersion, measures of skewness, index numbers, time series analysis. Under the measures of central tendency, you have the mean, median, and the mode. Under the measures of dispersion, you have range, standard deviation, and the variance. And the skewness, you have negatively skewed, normally skewed, and positively skewed. And you use so many techniques to see when you're using the unidimensional analysis or the descriptive analysis. One more important characteristic of the descriptive analysis, after unidimensional analysis, you have the bivariate analysis. So what do you do under bivariate analysis? It is the analysis of two variables or attributes in a two-way classification. These include simple regression, simple correlation, and two-way ANOVA. Like simple regression, it is a statistical method, fine, that allows us to summarize and study relationships between two continuous variables, like quantitative variables. Like you see, y is the function of x. Here y is a dependent variable and x is an independent or explanatory variable. Fine, this is simple regression. We are trying to see the relationship between summarize statistical technique that is used to summarize the relationship between two quantitative variables. Fine. We have simple correlation. It is a measure used to determine the strength. Yes. Your voice is not coming. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
In simple correlation, you try to see the strength and direction of the relationship between the variables, okay, between x and y. And simple correlation always ranges between -1 to +1, okay. Two-way ANOVA, to understand two-way ANOVA, you should know what is one-way ANOVA. In one-way ANOVA, under descriptive statistics, we test for significant difference between three or more means, say in two-way ANOVA. When using one-way ANOVA, what we do is we have an independent variable that can have three or more groups called, what are these groups called? Levels of independent variable. Okay. And all this in two-way ANOVA, what happens is, I will just not get deep into this. In two-way ANOVA, it is also called as the factorial ANOVA, where you find out two types of effects. One is the main effect, second is the interaction effect. What is the main effect? The factorial ANOVA permits the evaluation of each independent variable effect on the dependent variable. That is the main effect. Interaction effect is factorial analysis looks for significant changes in the dependent variable as a result of two or more of the independent variables working together. Okay. Then coming to the multivariate analysis, same way, simultaneous analysis of more than two variables or attributes in a multi-way classification. You use multiple regression, you use multi ANOVA or factor analysis. We saw what is factorial analysis, and then there is the cluster analysis. This cluster analysis, I just focus it a little on it. Cluster analysis, you identify clusters of observation within a data set. Like for example, for commerce students, say you have a retail company collecting information on households. That company has collected information on household income, size of the household, head of the household occupations, head of the household's occupation, as well as distance from the nearest urban area. It has collected information in so many variables. By using this information, we will form clusters. Like cluster one is small family, high spenders. Then second cluster will be large family and high spenders. Third cluster is small family, low spenders. Fourth cluster is large family and low spenders. Okay, this is one kind of an analysis. Next, after descriptive analysis, we come to the inferential analysis. Sorry. Inferential analysis, we come. Can you listen to me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, like I think the screen sharing is.
Only screen is off.
Sorry. Yeah. When it comes to inferential analysis or statistical analysis, what does it help us with? They enable the researcher to make generalizations about the population from the measures of the sample, and they help make generalizations about the population characteristics. What is the characteristic of a population called? It is a parameter. The characteristic of a sample is a statistic. So they help us make generalizations about the population characteristic and the sample, I mean, the sample characteristic being the statistic and the population characteristic being the parameter. Next, when it comes to the estimation of the parameter values, okay, you have two kinds of estimate. One is the point estimate, second is the interval estimate. Point estimate is single value estimate of a unknown parameter. Okay, interval estimates gives us an interval to estimate the parameters. So by in interval estimate, we obtain by using sample statistic at a desired confidence level. We use the sample statistic, okay, the characteristic of the sample at a desired confidence level. So that confidence level may be 99% or 95% and so on. 99% confidence means 99% confidence in the is the probability that the obtained interval will possess the true unknown parameter or the characteristic of the population. Testing of, one second important component of the inferential statistic is the testing of hypothesis using the parametric tests. I will just limit to what is parametric test and what can be their benefits, and what are non-parametric tests and what can be their benefits. Parametric tests are useful and most powerful tests. So these are very powerful tests, but they come with certain assumptions. Until and unless these assumptions are not satisfied, you cannot be using these parametric tests. Assumptions are based on the population distribution and the types of scales used to quantify the data measures. Some parametric tests like T tests, okay, T test and F test are quite robust and are appropriate even when some of the assumptions are not being met. Okay, they are quite robust and they can accommodate this even when the assumptions are not being met. But some other tests are they like usually parametric tests are based on these assumptions. Until and unless these assumptions are not met, we cannot be using it. Fine. What are the assumptions? The samples have equal or say the assumptions of the parametric tests is one, interval or ratio scales to be used. So variables described are to be expressed in interval or ratio scales and not in the nominal or ordinal scales of measurement. Like I told you the hierarchy of the scale of measurement. You use the interval of the ratio scales, that is the under the scale measurement, and you do not use the ordinal or the nominal scale. The highest level and the lowest level of scales, hierarchy of scales you do not use. The second thing is the samples have equal or nearly equal variances, and this condition is called as the equality or homogeneity of variance, and it is very important when the sample is small. Okay, samples have equal or nearly equal variance, or equality or homogeneity of variance is maintained. Third important characteristic is population values should be normally distributed, and the observations are independent selection of one case in the sample, and it is not dependent on the selection of any other cases. The observations are quite independent. So these are four important assumptions of the parametric test for the tests to be used. Coming to the non-parametric tests, or these are also called as the distribution free tests. They are not based on any particular distribution. Now, what are these distribution free tests? Parametric tests can be used only when the data is based on ratio or interval scale. I told you already. Okay. In case of counted or ranked data, we make use of non-parametric tests, and these non-parametric tests have greater merit because their validity is not based upon assumptions or about the nature of the population distribution. So these have greater merit. Their validity does not depend on any population distribution. However, non-parametric tests are less precise and less powerful than the parametric tests. Okay, these are also called as the distribution free tests. Why? Because non-parametric tests do not make numerous or stringent assumptions about the nature of population distribution, and hence that they are called as the distribution free tests. So when do you use? When are these non-parametric tests used? Non-parametric tests are used when the nature of population from which the samples are drawn is not known to be normal. Okay, when the nature of the population is not normal, you use it. And variables are expressed in the nominal form, then you use the non-parametric test. Datas are measures ranked or expressed in numbers which have strength of ranks. So whenever you have data that has the strength of ranks, you tend to use this non-parametric tests. Like each parametric test has an equivalent non-parametric test also. Fine. So these are the references that have been used for these slides, especially this book using SPSS and interactive hands-on approach. Yeah, that reminds me. I must make a mention of the various software packages that are used in data analysis. A very popular package that is used for data analysis is the software package for social sciences, SPSS. Okay, quite user friendly and just a menu based software where you click the menus and you run the software, and you can, like I told you, right, when it comes to data analysis, like let me show it to you. When it comes to data analysis, this analysis of data, descriptive analysis, and inferential analysis, everything can be, I'm so sorry, everything can be done under this SPSS package. You can get the unidimensional analysis, the bivariate analysis, the multivariate analysis. You can run parametric tests. You can run the non-parametric tests when it comes to the software packages. Okay, this is one software package. When it comes to types of data, when you're dealing with time series data, the most popular package that you use is the eViews package, as well as the recently recently very widely being used package, that is the Stata package. But what I say is, when you before getting indulging into using these packages, you should have very strong fundamentals of Microsoft Excel. That is, you should be knowing all these things can even be worked out in Excel. All these analytics can even be worked out in Excel. You should be proficient in that, and then you can move towards using these packages. So with this, I hope I have covered what all was said by Ashwini and Nandesh to me. Thank you, Nandesh, and thank you, Ashwini.